Hello, and welcome to the 6033 discussion on the final report. We're going to talk a little bit about figures using MapReduce as an example. So we are looking at the MapReduce simple data processing on large clusters paper that everyone is so familiar with. So what I would like to do is just take a moment to look at figure one, which is the system diagram from the paper. I'd like everyone to think back as to how they first experienced the system diagram and how that experience grew for them over the course of reading the paper. So a couple of things that I'd just like to highlight about this diagram is the vertical alignment as well as the horizontal alignment that is occurring here. So we have a vertical alignment of user program, master, and then the actual MapReduce construct below. So it moves vertically through three layers of abstraction. And then on this final layer, we have the lowest level, all of the details of the MapReduce program revealed. And here we move to this horizontal arrangement. And we have labels here for the input files, the map phase, immediate files, reduce phase, and output, as well as we have these bolded arrows in conjunction with the gray arrows. And the bolded arrows, as I'm sure everyone is well aware at this point, help signify this process that is embedded. So outside of the vertical layer and the horizontal layer, we have a circular process, well, not a true circular, actually a linear process that curves with this fork, assign to map, read, local write, remote read, and then write. So we have a process diagram embedded within the system diagram, and the system diagram works on multiple axes in order to be able to walk us through the levels of abstraction to see how the system, which is really this lower level of MapReduce, relates back to user input. If we think back to a lot of the system diagrams that we've looked at over the course of the class, all of them attempt to show us where the instigating agent of a user exists. And this is worth considering when it comes time to design your system diagram. Now, as you think back to how you encounter the system diagram, I want you to think about how easy and or difficult it was in order to be able to understand it and why that might be. And then I would like you to revisit your experience in reading this section of the paper, where it starts with figure one shows the overall flow of a MapReduce operation in our implementation. We've got some very nice active language here that shows the overall flow of MapReduce operation in our implementation. There's a very clear purpose statement as to what is being done with the figure. And then it walks through several phases of the MapReduce process using terminology that occurs earlier in the paper as it walks through this process. So the terminology is defined earlier, and then we see how it connects and relates in conjunction to the system diagram that's been introduced. Now, is MapReduce clear looking at just one, either looking just at the system diagram or just the description? Think about how you experienced this and at what point you sort of had your aha moment of understanding how MapReduce works. I would suspect that for many, it was a cognitive engagement between the two, looking at the text, thinking through the text, maybe not stopping to look back at the diagram at any given point, but referring back to it over time. And this is what we really want people to strive for in their final projects, is a system diagram with a textual description that engages the audience at multiple points and works together with a high level of synergy to sort of create this aha moment of, oh, this is how your system works. So think through the construction and maybe go with something a little bit more simple than what MapReduce chooses to do here, a process diagram embedded within this level of detail of three levels of abstraction and the system diagram. This may be a little too complex to attempt. It's a little too complex, possibly even for this paper, but they do use a lot of good work in the iconography, the varying of the arrows. There's an extensive amount of labeling. For the level of complexity, it is very clear, though it is indeed a lot of complexity to attempt to do all three things at once. Maybe you want to separate those into different diagrams. to increase the simplicity of your design. But think through how that design is going to work with the text that you're going to write in relation to it, and make certain that they're feeding off one another in order to be able to best educate your audience.